Greetings from Italia, I'm the Lord Bones, IMO Watch Dogs. Watch Dogs is an open world stealth cover shooter. It was released on the 27th of May 2014 and is by Ubisoft. I feel like I'm in a little bit of an odd place at the moment, in which I don't necessarily want to tell you about the game because, let's face it, everyone that wants to know about this game has already figured it out from other locations. However, it is important for someone that wants to become a game journalist to get their views out on a AAA title such as Watch Dogs. And so I'm just going to basically talk about my views on several of the mechanics and the campaign, assuming that you've already watched several videos such as the Total Biscuit video, which will go through the options menu. I think I haven't actually watched it at this point because I don't watch any other reviews before I start, but he generally does that anyway. I'll put a link in the description for you. Now I'm just going to talk about the campaign. So most of the campaign missions basically boil down to stealth until you get caught, and then it's a gunfight, and then there's some form of hacking, and then a car chase to get away. Although this is about 80% of the missions, I do feel like there's a good variation in where you're actually going and what you're actually doing. And there is a certain amount of freedom inside of the way you actually approach the stealth to a certain degree. I did find occasionally I solved a mission by sort of tricking the system, sticking bombs where I shouldn't, well, where the game didn't tell me to put them, and sort of making my way through the game in my own direction. Now the story is actually not bad. If I would say a little bit, I don't know whether I would say a little bit predictable, but I did in my head think, okay, maybe X, maybe Y would happen, and then X, occasionally one of them would actually come to be in the actual story. Now missions always tend to top the previous and tend to build up and build up throughout all of the acts, and I did like the fact that the last couple missions were definitely grandiose. I feel like games in which you unlock the entire island have this problem of not having a grandiose middle point of the actual campaign, but the game sort of solves that by giving you these very cool and active and enjoyable missions occasionally throughout the acts. It does seem, however, occasionally that the character has a plan that it doesn't quite tell you. There's a sort of misinterpretation of the objective. It will say, take down X or take down Y without being spotted, and then it will say, you know, go steal this boat. But it doesn't say, go steal this boat to get to that person. It just sort of expects you to figure this out as you go along. I did find that occasionally within inside the actual campaign, it's almost as if there's a plan for it to actually go down, and yet it doesn't actually tell you. Very, very annoying. I did actually notice as well that you should really have a last checkpoint button. In the menu there is a restart mission button, and when you actually die you go back to the last checkpoint. I prefer the last checkpoint button as well, because occasionally you'll mess up, like let's say you get spotted in stealth and then you have to run out and kill yourself in order to restart if you want to do it all stealthily, which occasionally I did. And I don't know whether this was the case, but I seem to have got myself stuck on one of the missions. I was sort of trailing across all the cameras and couldn't quite get back to the previous one, so I ended up having to restart the mission, which was very annoying. Just one final positive, sometimes you end up protecting people and they sometimes have guns and you happen to want to move through and kill people. However, these guys actually have regenerating health like you do, which was very, very nice in comparison to some games that don't really do that. Now I'm going to touch on the basic mechanics, so starting with driving. As with any game, driving is something you usually have to get used to. In new GTA games this is something, in new Saints Row games occasionally, not with Saints Row 4 though, because obviously it was practically the same engine. But it constantly feels like the cars were only created for getaways, because when you press W, it seems to shoot off at an enormous distance with only a slight amount of push, which sort of explains the reason why cars are even there. They seem to just be there for the purpose of getting away when the game wants you to. Not exactly a bad thing, but does make them almost impossible to accurately steer. You also don't get a great variety of cars, and I didn't really see that any sort of statistics on how well each one actually compares. The cars basically fall into 5 categories: fast, faithful, crap, vans and bikes, which is okay, but I don't quite know whether when I used them, whether or not I really felt any difference between them 5 categories. Either the car was okay, really fast, really rubbish, or was, you know, a van or a bike. I don't know as well, why exactly can't you shoot in a car? I understand that you probably couldn't hack and shoot in a car, but for some reason I wasn't able to actually do that, which was a little bit weird. Additionally, the damage outside the car is really limiting as well, to the point where dents are basically non-existent, which is really annoying. You do see like the back window smashed and occasionally a door coming off, but that's practically it, which is a little bit annoying in comparison to other games. That in mind, although there's smoke when it's practically too late, there isn't any sort of feedback as to how damaged your car actually is. Now the shooting feels fairly responsive, however headshots seem to be rather easy on PC. I have a feeling that's something to do with the aim. You're forced to bring a silenced pistol or sniper on most missions, whether both of these work exactly as you'd hoped. And occasionally, however, you'll try to shoot things through stairs or over a rock, and the shot won't land even though you can see the shot where the bullet would actually go, which is rather annoying. I actually really like the grenade UI though. It's one of the few I've constantly used because you can really see where the grenade's actually going to land. A few games have used it and I'm definitely pleased this game does. Now, occasionally cover will give you a few odd options where it thinks the surface ends, and some items that should be able to cover behind you actually can't. This was very weird throughout the course of the stealth missions. Okay, I'm going to talk about hacking for a little bit now. So you spend most of the time riding the cameras and occasionally get locked into them in missions. Riding the cameras is fairly pleasing to a point, to be perfectly honest with you, just to have this sort of surveillance sort of motive behind your mind. Hacking things in the city also never ceases to impress, which I thought it would. I thought hacking traffic lights, for example, would become dull and boring. However, it just doesn't, just because of all the amazing sound design and effects of these cars crashing into each other. Also, when you get the ability to hack helicopters, disable reinforcements and bursting steam pipes, it becomes a very pleasing experience to hack around the city. Now there's a move you can do which basically disrupts the communications and makes you go nuts on people that are the enemy, and for some reason people seem to think that that is a reason to go around and search people, and yet when, let's say, a forklift goes up and down, that's just a buggy CTOS system, which is a little bit weird. I would have thought disabled comms would have been alright. The game sort of chooses when and where these situations happen. There was a disabled communication which I was pretty certain was probably going to make this person search around, but because it was a mission went in which I was directing somebody, it didn't, because it just arbitrarily chose as such. Now just touching on the stealth a little bit, and I've liked the ability to maybe pick up and drag men and drop them somewhere else. The main issue I ran into were when people were spotted. I've never been a big fan of the guard control path when the path leads them to stare at a wall for a minute. It's just completely fourth wall breaking. I think there's also a person inside of the CTOS centre in Pawnee who was just staring at a shelf with a few boxes on it. I thought originally he was staring at a few cameras, but no. Staring at just a load of boxes for no apparent reason. I didn't really like that. I thought it was completely fourth wall breaking. Now occasionally the stealth is largely just a puzzle. I mean, it is as satisfying as, let's say, Far Cry 3, and there is far more of it than Far Cry 3. However, there are a set number of steps you could take in order to not get spotted. I preferred it when I have more free reign though, to be perfectly honest with you, inside the actual game. Although the sections where you're locked in are pretty pleasing, I do like it when you have a little bit more open world coming into this. Now I'm just going to touch up on the AI. So citizens are pretty stupid and never seem to get out of your way, and considering I'm constantly trying to be the good guy, it damages my rep when killing civilians. There was one mission in which I sort of attracted people to one location where they thought I actually was, and every single person other than my target happened to go there. So all I did was walk straight around the course of the entire bit of the area I was meant to be in to get to my goal. You would have thought, to be perfectly honest with you, they would have spread out. Additionally, there was one mission towards the end of the game in which I made a loud noise, and obviously they went to search for it, and the AI seems to bump into itself a lot. Now when people end up chasing you, it is highly biased against you. They go where the game knows you are. There was one mission when I was swimming away, and no one see me for like 5 minutes. I ditched my car and ran, and no one would even come anywhere near to spotting me. And yet when I swam across the entire river, the cars were on the road waiting for me, and no one had actually seen me. The AI is good, but it's not perfect. Now let's talk about the open world elements. Now I spent a lot of time actually hacking people on the streets because you get these system keys which are used in crafting. However, I did notice something whilst doing this, that it seems rather weird that I can walk around stealing people's bank accounts and not get punished, and yet gain a positive reputation for beating up criminals who are stealing money. It's a little bit sort of hypocritical of the citizens, or I guess they probably don't know that I'm stealing their bank accounts, but you would have thought that with the amount of money that I'm stealing, like thousands and thousands of dollars continually, that would at least lower the amount of credibility with citizens. Now you do find these CTOS towers around the entire city when you unlock an area, and these are like the radio towers in Far Cry. You navigate around and solve a mini puzzle which has a mixture of, I won't so much say platforming at all, but it was sort of you hack around and you move lifts and look around the cameras for boxes to unlock, and these are very, very pleasing. Also, when you unlock these, you happen to get a safe house which has an audio log, and I do like the audio logs because it's a brilliant way to get around the lore. Also, there are open world missions in which you unlock actual normal missions by finding all certain items, and this was a brilliant way to make you want to go out in the world, and the audio logs is a brilliant way to get across the lore. Now on the streets you can't hack people's phones and listen in, however I did hear a lot of the same conversations. On a positive note, there is some actually comedy in these conversations. There is a lot to do inside the city, however most of the time between missions you spend your time hacking for system keys on the streets, using crafting. It might have been nice for other open world elements to actually give out these system keys, if they actually wanted it to be an incentive to look around the world, rather than having to just trail around into a populated area and hack every single person, because this can just arbitrarily lengthen the actual game. Now very quickly just touching up on the customization, clothes shopping is worthless. Firstly, you can't try before you buy, and everything is so much of a variety to the original, it's basically like buying a different colour of the same scarf. Also, you can't customise the guns, and I've loved to have had detachments like you got in Far Cry 3, because what else is there really to spend your money on? There's no point spending money on cars, so to be perfectly honest with you, I would have preferred you to have attachments. Like even if you limited the silencer to the pistol, I would like, let's say, an extended mag for example. And considering they give you guns as you go, you're not even really spending money on your guns. I do like the skill tree, however the game does go a little bit nuts XP later on and making it a little less of a progression tree and more of a platter just to choose from. The music system in this game is different, let's say. It uses playlists instead of radio stations. I do like it, but it was a little bit strange to get used to. Now, with the online, I can't really say much because there's not many people on the PC playing it. However, mobile tracking game biases the tracker more than the tracker, and the car tailing, it isn't terrible. However, dying does seem to be much easier online. I'd have rather be able to play a lot more online before I start giving my opinions on it, but that's all I got for about an hour's worth of trying. So in conclusion, Watch Dogs is a brilliant game which will easily hook you in for hours on end. Watch Dogs is on Steam or Uplay for around $60, £40, €60. I love it. See you in the next one, goodbye.